10 time management hacks for entrepreneurs. Time. It's our scarcest resource. And as an entrepreneur, we all know this all too well. Anytime that we sit down to think about the things that we have to do, regardless of how excited we are, we know that we're going to be overwhelmed. We know that every minute of every day, we could be working even if we're not working. So we either are doing stuff that we need to be doing, or we're thinking about stuff that we should be doing, or we're worried about stuff that we can't even get to do because we know that time is the thing that we don't have enough control over, and that is the thing that's holding us back from being able to reach our goals. If we had unlimited time, obviously we would be able to do unlimited tasks and we'd be able to get everything done. But part of it is a mental game, because at the end of the day, there is no way to generate more time. We all have the same amount of time in a day, so we just have to make smart decisions about how we use it. And so one of the critical things is to make sure that we are ruthlessly efficient and ruthlessly protective of our time. So we have to make sure that the time that we are spending is high leverage, high quality, and we're doing everything in the most efficient way we possibly can, so we have an opportunity to have some downtime, and so we have an opportunity to get to all the things we otherwise might not be able to get to. So it's a tricky balance, because we want to be efficient and we want to be motivated, proactive, we want to work hard and get a lot of stuff done, but we also don't want to be beating ourselves up all the time or feeling like we need to constantly be working 24 hours a day, otherwise we're falling behind. Because unfortunately, even if we've entered into the realm of entrepreneurship to have freedom, we've got anything but. If we're working like that and we're feeling like we need to be working all the time, even when we're not, then we don't really have anything other than a time-consuming job that we bought. When I was starting my digital business, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. And I was ultimately able to build it up to a point where I could do it full time. And so I was able to let go of my full-time job and all that other stuff. But the funny thing is, at the time I was working a lot, I was going to school, I was raising a family and starting a business. And I was doing a lot, I was working a lot, I wasn't sleeping very much. But the irony is, once I shifted into owning my own business and doing that, and I was able to do it full time, it started to absorb all of my time. And it ultimately replaced everything else. It got to a point where I was working that 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours in a day. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but even when I wasn't working, I was thinking about work. I was thinking about all the stuff that I needed to do once I could get back to work. So whether or not I was at a family event, or whether I was at the movies, or whatever stuff that I was doing, I was always had work on my mind because I knew there were unresolved, unleft things that weren't done yet that I needed to get to. And so I've eventually been able to evolve and figure out a balance and get to a point where I can work a very normal schedule and still get everything done. And it wasn't easy for me. So depending on where you are, you may or may not struggle with it. It might be easier for you or not. But time management is ultimately crucial for entrepreneurs, because otherwise what ends up happening is, if we think we're Spartan and we're just going to outwork everybody and I'll sleep when I'm dead and that kind of stuff, what ends up happening is our bodies break down, we lack focus, we get irritable, our skin doesn't look good, we lose our health, everything starts to fall apart, our relationships suffer. That's not a great way to go about life. And that certainly isn't the freedom that we set out to have in the first place. Now, it's fine to cram sometimes, right? When you're in college or you're in high school and you have final exams, you have to cram. So for that period of time, you don't have an opportunity to do as much of your free time stuff. You have to work harder. Business is no different. There are times where we have deadlines, we have things that have to get done. So we might need to put our head down and have a really busy week. The key is to make sure that that is only periodic and that isn't the default state where we're constantly working, and when we're not working, we're constantly thinking about work, because that is not healthy. So we need to stay productive and focused amidst the myriad of tasks and responsibilities that we have. So let's discuss some effective time management techniques that are specific for entrepreneurs. The first one is to prioritize tasks. Now, this might sound obvious, but you'd be amazed, in fact, I'm guilty of it myself, of how many people just make a list and there are no priorities. They have a list of what they need to do, but there isn't a prioritization of it in a way where we understand what are the highest leverage things that absolutely need to get done. So we can use things like an Eisenhower matrix or ABC prioritization. It can be really simple. You can put a star next to something that's really important, highlight it in a certain color, make it on the top of your list on a digital calendar, whatever. The point is, we need to have a prioritization so we know what comes next and what's most important. If there were 5 things I had to get done today by the end of the day and I couldn't get anything else done, what would those 5 things be? And those are the things that we need to focus on. We need to attach urgency and importance to them, and we need to get those things done. If there's time to get through other things later, that's great. But if those things need to be done, even if they're not the most fun, even if they're not the most fulfilling, if they are the highest productive things that we can do that move our business forward, those are the things that we need to do. And we need to focus on the highest priority tasks that directly contribute to our business goals. They may not be the most fun, but they're the most important. The second thing that we need to do is set specific goals. So whether you're a goal setter or not a goal setter, studies have shown over and over again that people with defined, clearly stated goals tend to achieve higher levels of success than people who don't. But regardless of how we feel about it, it's important that we clearly define short-term and long-term goals. We need long-term goals because, that's our pie in the sky. That's what we want to achieve. That's great. But that won't motivate us today. That's sort of keeping our eye on the horizon. But we need short-term goals so we know, what do we need to get done this week? What milestones are we going to cross this week? And when we break that down into actionable steps, that helps us lead to a well-prioritized list. Because now we know what our most important goals are. We also know what are the most important factors and tasks that go into achieving those, so we know what things to prioritize. That will help us stay focused, it'll help us stay motivated, and it'll always help us know what needs to be accomplished. So just from the sort of 1,000-foot view, right, the bird's eye view, those are more strategic, sort of esoteric things. That's not actually about getting stuff done. But it is important to have that as the right mindset when we approach our daily activities and we approach our time management and our productivity. Because if we have that in mind, we're much more likely to do all the rest of the things right. The third thing that we can do is time blocking. This is something that I actually swear by. I found it to be super effective, and I know when I started to use it. Prior to using it, I always felt as though I was working hard. I always felt like I was motivated. So I never felt like I needed any sort of external tools or needed any other kind of systems or methodologies. I was just going to work hard and I was going to get it done. And what I ended up finding was that some of the higher priority tasks got forgotten. And then I would think back and I would say, how could I have forgotten that? I know how important it was. Things got left out. And ultimately, some of the crucial tasks weren't getting done, despite the fact I was always busy and I was accomplishing things. When we do time blocking, we allocate specific time slots for different tasks or categories. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to say, I know that this marketing campaign has to get out this week. So I'm going to block out the next 2 hours and I'm going to work from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on this marketing campaign today. And that's all I'm going to do. If emails come in and instant messages and phone calls, unless it's urgent, I'm going to ignore that and I'll call them back, I'll message them back, I'll check my social media feeds later. What I need to do right now is get this marketing thing done. And statistics show that when we work in blocks of time, it's far harder to constantly change gears. It's why when we're interrupted all the time, it takes, I think they say, an average of 7 minutes to get back on task, which is why it's so vitally valuable to have time blocks, because if we know for this 2 hours I'm shutting my door, I'm taking the phone off the hook, I'm turning off all my alerts, I'm putting my head down and I'm doing this, then we know that we're going to be able to get that done. And oftentimes that hour or 2 hour block of time, we will get more done than what we'd otherwise get done on that task in half a day to a whole day. It's that powerful. And it helps us create a structured schedule. It prevents us from multitasking, which actually is counterproductive, and it allows us to fully concentrate on one task at a time. But the other thing it does is it dovetails perfectly into our priorities. Because if we think about it in this respect, I've identified my 5 high priority tasks for the day. Now I'm going to time block 2 hours for this one, an hour for that one, 2 hours for this one, an hour for that one, time for lunch, whatever. Now I've got my entire day structured. We could put in an hour of loosey-goosey time for responding to messages, things that are less urgent, checking our stats, doing whatever stuff that we need to do. We could build that into our lunch hour or whatever else. But if we have all of our highest priority tasks time blocked in our schedule, it works automatically by itself. All we've got to do is follow our own plan and we achieve our results. So that is why it's super powerful, and that is why it's a great way to work. And it's important to be able to do that. And then we want to obviously take breaks, but it's super important to work in concentrated blocks of time where our only focus is the one activity that we're doing. I can't emphasize that enough. That one tool in and of itself, that one methodology in and of itself, absolutely transformed the way that I work. The fourth thing that we want to do is we want to use productivity tools. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk next to this one because I am a tool guy. I don't know if you're a tool person. I love tools. I've always been fascinated with the newest, greatest tools. So I had the old Franklin planners, and I had, in the old days before we had everything digital, I literally had stuff where I could write things out. And what I found was, ultimately, the vast majority of the tools, I spent more time setting the tool up than I did using it. And I found that the tool itself didn't actually make me more productive. All it did was keeping running a track record of all the stuff I never got to. So I ended up carrying tasks over to the next day and the next day and the next day. Now it's a lot easier now because everything's automated, everything's online, and that's great. But nonetheless, the asterisk is this. It's super important that we find productivity tools that work the way we work. No matter how great a tool is, no matter how many 5-star reviews it has, if intuitively we can't get it to work for us, we don't get it, it doesn't resonate with how we work, it's a waste of time. We're never going to stick with it. And we're just going to end up spending all of our time setting it up only to not use it and go back to our old methods. I found that to be 100% true. When I find tools that actually work for me and I lean in, now keep in mind there's a learning curve. So it doesn't mean it has to work instantly out of the box. We have to learn how to use the tool. But if once we've learned how to use it, we find we're gravitating away from it and we aren't really using it anyway, it's time to find a better tool that matches how we work. Let's recognize how we work. Let's find a tool that fits within that instead of trying to fit the way we work to the tool. And so when we use task management tools, there are a bunch of them out there. The one that I'm currently using is Monday. And I actually really like it because I find it has all the things that I need. And basically, what I can do is I can put all of my stuff in there. I can put it in my categories. I can prioritize it. I can put in alarms. I can put in my appointments. I can put in my personal stuff. So it's all in one place. But it's simple enough to use. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of overhead. And I'll stick with it. And that's the most important thing. Whatever tool you choose, it has to be something that you'll be able to actually use and stick with. But they're invaluable in being able to keep the mental clutter out of our heads. Because what happens is, even if we think we're really good at remembering everything we've got to do, when it's in our head, it takes up mental space. We can't relax and just focus on what we need to do because that's always in the back of our mind. The minute that we have everything written down and it's somewhere where we know it's safe, we can clean that stuff out of our mind. It's like clicking the little trash bin, recycle bin in our computer desktop. Cleans everything out and starts us over from scratch. And what's great about that is we can focus completely on what we're doing, and we know we aren't going to leave anything behind because all of that stuff is still right there for us whenever we want to go look. But anything that helps us organize tasks, set deadlines, and track our progress, that's the other beauty of it. All of these tools allow us to go back and look. So even if we're feeling down or we're wondering, have we really been productive? We can go back over our progress and see what we actually accomplished, and we can recognize how much we actually did and celebrate that. The fifth hack, or the fifth productivity thing that we can do for time management, is to batch similar tasks together. This is a really effective technique as well. We want to group similar tasks together and tackle them in batches. So, for example, if we want to dedicate particular time to respond to emails. Now, we might have customer support, we might have sales or pre-sales emails, we might have team member emails, but the task, the sort of mechanics of the task is exactly the same. So it makes a lot of sense to just do that because we get in a rhythm, and it's easy to just keep doing it while we're doing it. Plus, once we've completed it, we can cross that off and exhale because it's completed, and we feel good when we get a sense of completion. Making phone calls is another one. We might have a business call to make, we might have a vendor call to make, we might have a customer call to make, whatever. Yes, they're all different calls in different categories, but they're all phone calls. So they all require us to be present on the phone. We might as well knock all that stuff out at once so it doesn't interrupt our schedule later. And then we can block out time to do the other stuff later. Brainstorming ideas, all of these kinds of things minimize context switching. So that improves our efficiency. Every time we're interrupted or every time we switch context from one thing to another, there's several minutes that we need to regain our focus, and that loses efficiency. Doing that once during the day, not a big deal. When that happens over and over and over again, it's amazing how inefficient we become. We may waste an hour, 2 hours a day in inefficiency. And if we can claim all that time back, imagine how much we can get done. The sixth thing we want to do is delegate effectively. So if we have a team, it's super important that anything that can be delegated is. We want to identify every and any task that can be delegated to others. This is particularly true of anything that's administrative or repetitive. Anything administrative or repetitive, we 100% want to be giving that stuff out. Now, if we don't have a team, you might say, well, wait a minute, Brett, I'm a solopreneur. That's fine. Initially, we can automate some of that stuff maybe with AI. The other option is we could go on a site like Upwork or Fiverr, and we can actually find an admin who can do this stuff at very, very cheap rates. And if it's something simple and it doesn't have a big learning curve, they should be able to come up to speed really fast, take all that off of our plate, and the few dollars spent per hour to get that stuff done will be well worth it because we can focus on higher leverage, higher priority activities that are worth a lot more to our business. When we delegate, it frees up our time. We can focus on higher value activities that require our expertise and our attention. The seventh thing we want to do is practice the 2-minute rule. This is great for eliminating mental clutter, I can't even tell you. If a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. It's amazing the profound impact this has when we start checking things off, even when we know intuitively that they're small and easy. And we see check, 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 we got 6 things done. That builds momentum, it builds confidence, it gets us excited, it makes us more proactive, it makes us more effective, it makes us more productive and efficient, and it makes us feel really good. It also prevents small tasks from piling up and consuming more time, but also consuming more mental energy. Every one of these things that's sitting on our shoulder is a mental distraction that weighs on us and it pulls us down. When we offload that stuff, whoosh, we let off the emergency brake and we're ready to fly. The eighth thing we want to do is limit distractions. Everybody loves to check their media feeds and check their stats and all this other stuff. But we want to identify those common distractions and ask, are they really necessary? If they're not, we want to turn that stuff off. Social media, email notifications, noisy surroundings, alerts, constantly checking our stats, those kinds of things. Set times to do those. Give yourself a 15-minute block later in the day to do that a couple times a day, whatever. But that way we know we're going to do it and we aren't going to let that creep into the rest of the day, where 15 minutes becomes a half an hour, becomes 45 minutes, becomes an hour. We're down some other rabbit hole reading these other articles. Instead, we keep it focused to the time that actually makes sense. So it's entertainment and a break for entertainment and break's sake. And it's deliberate and it's planned, as opposed to a distraction that keeps us from getting stuff that we need. So we can use website blockers, noise canceling headphones, whatever we need to do. We want to listen to classical music to block everything out. That's great. The ninth thing we can do is schedule regular breaks. This is equally important. While we work in time blocks, it's also important we can't go from one work to the next work, to the next work, to the next work. We need mental and physical breaks. It could be close our eyes and listen to our headphones for a few minutes. It could be go for a walk around the building, walk around the park, walk around your yard or your neighborhood, whatever. It could be go, run downstairs and bang out a quick 15-minute yoga session or meditation session. It doesn't matter what it is, play a video game, but something that detaches us completely from work. But again, that's planned, maintained, and scheduled and limited. So it's a 15-minute break for every 2 hours of work or whatever it is. After that 15 minutes, the timer goes off, we get back to work. We have to make sure we don't let it creep in and affect everything else. But breaks are equally important to keep us motivated, prevent burnout, and improve our overall well-being. And the 10th thing we want to do is we do want to reflect and adjust. We do want to regularly review our time management strategies, identify what's working well, and what needs improvement. There's always stuff that we can adjust our techniques, and we can optimize our productivity and effectiveness over time by doing this. By implementing these time management techniques, what we're going to be able to do is better prioritize our tasks, stay organized, and make the most out of our limited time. And that ultimately leads to greater success in anything that we're doing. So the takeaway here is that we all have the same amount of time. So actually, really, there's no such thing as actual time management, but it's rather managing how we use our time. And that is a vital skill to master, as an entrepreneur especially, because there's always more to do than can be done. If we develop the right time management habits, we can get more done in less time, and we can increase our efficiency, productivity, and profitability. Now, it may not seem like much to get just 1 hour of extra stuff done per day, but when we stretch that out over a week, a month, a year, we can see that's an extra 250 to 350 hours of productivity, which makes it a lot more probable that we'll reach our goals and do it a lot faster too.